Welcome back to the Twin Destiny podcast. This is episode 3. I'm CJ.
I'm Paddy.
He is still Paddy, and we are delighted to welcome Jay Taylor from Cane and Rinse to be our guest on episode 3. Hi, Jay.
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Paddy?
Yeah, we're all good. I was ready for the question.
So I know from looking on my friends list that even though there are tons of criticisms all over the net for Destiny, and it seems that I can leap on N4G even now and see another 6 out of 10 or a massive criticism, but most of the people on my friends list are playing Destiny. And when I asked Jay about it, there was just this burst of enthusiasm that came back. He was just like, yeah, played a lot of it. So how's it taken over your life thus far, Jay?
Well, I mean, what can you say? Obsessive, compulsive behaviour sort of fits the bill, I think.
So what turned your head towards it in the first place? Was it something you were anticipating, or it caught up with it late, or?
No, that's the weird thing. Like, because I'd obviously been aware of that Bungie were making a new game, but I kind of, 4 years ago I stopped my Xbox Gold live subscription, so I kind of sort of fell out of Microsoft multiplayer stuff. So Halo kind of went on the back burner, and I picked up, I borrowed Reach, played that, and whilst I was aware they were doing a new game, I wasn't like sold on it. I just wasn't paying that much. I wasn't bothered really, if I'm honest. I thought, yeah, it looks all right. I was kind of intrigued by what they were saying, this whole MMO thing, but it was like, yeah, whatever. And then they did the open beta, and it was like, oh, what the hell? I had a look at how big the file was. It was like 6 gig on the PS3. So I thought, oh, you know what? It's there. I might as well have a look at it. Because everybody had been. There was a few people on Twitter who'd got into the private version. I
think there was an alpha, and then there was there was a private beta for the pre-orders.
That's right. Yeah.
They just opened it up to everybody, didn't they?
Yeah. So I'd seen I think it's Darren Gajet and a few of the guys from the community and stuff were sort of posting, screenshots and some video and stuff. And it was like, okay, this kind of looks cool. So when it came open for everybody, I was like, oh, I'll try it. So I started downloading it on, I think, the Friday afternoon, and it never came off all weekend. It was just like, as soon as I started playing it, I was like, you know what, actually, this is really rather good, isn't it? And and it carried on and on and on. And then I think by the Saturday evening, I'd maxed out the level, and it was just like, couldn't stop playing it. And I thought, oh, wow. And it was like a drug, because the moment it stopped on I went on I checked it on the Monday, and I thought, it's still there. I thought, oh, I'll turn it on, see what happens. Oh no, it's locked off now. And it's like, no, sorry. I literally, got the withdrawal symptoms and stuff. And he was like, I know so I had to put the pre-order in. And then it's like, and then patiently wait for the next sort of 4 weeks or so before it dropped in the box. But it was like, yeah. And it totally blew my mind. Like, I couldn't get over how quickly I got into it and how much I enjoyed playing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same for me, really, with the alpha. I mean, I got in on that, the alpha they announced at E3, I think it was. They were like, by the way, you can play it next week. You're like, what? Wait, what now? What? Yeah. And I mean, I'm not a shooter guy. I do not play shooters. I'm not a shoot man. And like you say, you play it, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, okay, I get it. Yeah. I shoot the thing, and then the alpha weekend was over, and then I felt a bit empty for a while. So can I just go back to space, please? Please, can I? No? Oh, okay.
Because there was that magic moment where they said that they were going to close it off at, I think, about our time, about 10 o'clock on the Saturday night. And then so many people went, hold on, and a new planet's opened up. And they just opened up the moon for like the last 2 hours. And people just went, what's going on? This is amazing. And they just had people sort of bouncing on trampolines for these final couple of hours. And it's like, they seem to want as many people as possible to have an opinion on it. And I really like the fact that because most people played the beta, folks either knew if they loved it or hated it before committing their money. And considering the amount of hype that was then, going to go into the release, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing because we were talking. I was chatting with Leon the other day, and he was saying that we're talking about sort of demos and how you don't really see kind of the demo culture that we had a few years back. It seems to have faded out. Like demos aren't that. I rarely ever look at a demo these days. It's just. But these kind of things, you could say it had the same catch of the old school demo. You would put it on, you think, oh my, wow, this is awesome, I'm going to play it. And it had that same thing. And I haven't had that feeling for years. Like, I don't really day one games at all these days. I tend to, PlayStation Plus has given me more than I can actually play, so it gives me like Dragon's Dogma for nothing, which I then pump in about 200 hours into, so it's just like, but it was, so it's just like, I haven't day one the game since 2011 with Battlefield 3. And I guess it's the multiplayer thing, the online side of things that kind of pulls me into that feeling that I got to get in there early. But with this, it was just like, wow.
Because I know online-wise, with this, there was an interview on Polygon with the developers, probably about 6 months before release, and they were talking about inspirations, and they said two of these developers looked quite blushingly at one another, and they went, "We really like Dark Souls." And I think that the way that it kind of, even though it's doing its own twist of lime on it, the way it pulls other players into the world and makes it seem kind of like maybe time's bending in and out, but it just feels like a single player with other people in it rather than being a strict multiplayer. And there's a real degree of camaraderie as well that you find with these strangers that might be running around like Yoda 1 2 3 or whatever it is, and you just like you're all jumping in, you're pitching in around one another, and it's a fantastic feeling.
But I totally get that Dark Souls vibe from it, and it's I know like. I even had this moment on the beta, which sort of gives you a thrill because it kind of teases stuff, and then when you get the game, it's like, oh, I'm going straight back there and see if those guys are still there. But it's like when you spawn in on Cosmodrome and you look to your left, there's that subway entrance, and you go down there, and if you take a left down there, there's three. I think it's either two knights and an acolyte, or a knight and two acolytes, and these guys are like level 12, and they've got a yellow life bar, and they are hard. Like with the beta, I literally found these guys by accident when I was like level 2, and you see that yellow life bar, and you think, go on. I mean, you take a couple of shots at them, and it does nothing. They take one shot at you, and you've got the beep 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 on your life bar, and you're like, oh hell, I'm getting the hell out of here. But then it's that feeling like, and it's the same with Dark Souls. You get the thing, like, you walk into an area and then you think, oh, let's go and prod in with a sword to see what happens.
Yeah. But I think,
and then then they sort of lays you out across the room, and you kind of think, I'm definitely coming back here when I've got a bigger sword.
It's the first Black Knight in the Undead Burg, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to backstab him. Did nothing. It did nothing. Oh god.
Yeah.
But I think those things build up a degree of tension. That if you find somewhere that's maybe a little cave after that, or a little nook or a cranny, you kind of go, there's this sort of catch of your breath a little bit, like what's going to be here. And when because I played the beta on 360, and it was interesting because I walked into it and I was taken by the world, and I love it when a world just makes me go, I'm not going to run through this. I just want to explore everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's a great line by Hidetaka Miyazaki about Dark Souls, where he says that something along the lines of a captivating world could tell its story in silence. And I just, when I first saw those sort of massive rocket platforms with the shuttles on the side, you see the sun or whatever time of day it is.
Yeah.
I just kind of, I caught my breath, and I marveled at the sight of it, and I felt, even though it was September time, I felt a little bit cold because of the snow on the ground, and I was in. And even though my the direction was telling me to go towards these missions, the fact that I just wanted to explore, and I'd spent ages buggering around just shooting enemies.
Yeah.
Wherever they dropped off, that's the point where I would just like, oh, because I still really didn't quite know what it was until I pitched in there.
I mean, just think about how long as well, like because me and CJ have done a lot of co-op together.
Yeah.
Think about how often we've been in a mission with a couple of other people and they've run off and left us behind because we're just bollocking about exploring everything. Just like, I'm just going to shoot these guys, but I'm going to shoot these guys again, and I'm going to go back over here and check this cave, and we're just going to make sure over there, and oh, wait, the other guy's in the thing, he's triggered the thing already. Should we catch up? Yeah. And then like 5 minutes running through the level to catch back up where we're supposed to be. But yeah, there's so much, like, it's rich. Like, we found a little room the other day, didn't we? That we've never seen before, that seemingly seems to lead off to the new DLC.
Yeah. I've heard that's one of the places. But
there's a few places like that, isn't there?
Yeah,
sort of wander off, like, oh, we're going to a place, and a little think about like King's Watch. We're like, oh, King's Watch, this sounds brilliant. And that's down that corridor, isn't it? Where you often got right in the corner of the on that sort of second area of the Cosmodrome. You get the vagrants who hang about there now and again.
So, what are your opinions on the way that the game is structured? Because some people seem to be under the impression that they're disappointed or Bungie's let them down because it's not an open world.
Oh, do you listen to them?
I found a lot of the comments and conversations that, I mean, yes, it's been incredibly rich within everybody's got an opinion on the game, but a lot of the time for me, it's felt like they're talking about something that I'm not playing.
Yeah, I mean, I was sat today watching a lot of the YouTube reviews from the more sort of well-known YouTubers, and you look at the date they made this, and it was like a week after the launch, and they're just slating the game, and you just think, yeah, but how much have you actually played? You know, it's like I'm still finding stuff out about the game, and I have literally caned the hell out of this game for the last 3 weeks solid, and you know, and I'm still being surprised by stuff. I'm still finding things. I'm still discovering sort of better ways to do what I've been doing, and you know that, I'm a pinch of salt really with me with that stuff. I understand some of the criticisms, the more sort of the more considered critiques that some people have put forward with, you know, particularly I guess with things like the story, you know, that's not really it's not a thing for me at all. I don't, you know, it's like you don't play any multiplayer game or whatever for the story. It's about that sort of moment to moment sort of experience of the, you know, of everything, just the cooperative thing. But yeah.
It's interesting with regards to the story because there's been something that's come up in this last week with as to whether people are just putting two and two together or and making five. I don't know, but I think there's possibly something in this that a gentleman called Joe Staten, who wrote most of the Halo games, and in particular ODST and Reach were pretty much his babies, and my two favorite Halo games. It seems to be that the game was much more story heavy, and that there were a lot more areas in there. That there was a deeper universe, and with the criticisms of the story, you kind of get the feeling that yes, it's been fragmented and broken up, but I don't know if this was a decision of Activision's and Bungie's that they thought, well, are we going to be putting a lot of people off because there's a lot that's there for them to consider, or lots of cutscenes or whatever, or is it better to have a framework where, you know, we're quite old school with regards to the games that we've played, and you know, in the olden days it used to be the mayor is missing. Put on your red and blue pajamas and go and get him, and they kind of give you the framework to to go and have an adventure in this world. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not dismissing the argument that the story's terrible, and I'm not neither am I kind of wholeheartedly agreeing with it either. I think there's moments in that storyline that tease things that could possibly be expanded upon, and I'm optimistic in the sense that they might do that, and by the time this is a year from now, we've got an entirely different perspective on what the story was. I don't know. I mean, that it may not be the case that's how it goes, but
I mean, I'm really hoping that what they're doing is laying down, like, because when you watch a film, and you watch the first film and it's like, oh, that makes sense, it's all contained, and then you watch the sequel and you're like, what? Perfect example, The Matrix, first one, perfect film.
Yeah,
I love First Matrix, brilliant. And then the second one is like, by the way, here's a bunch of extra bollocks that we didn't tell you about before. You're like, what? That doesn't fit. So maybe by sort of drip feeding it and kind of giving you hints about stuff, they're going to expand upon that later. Maybe they actually have planned out a 10-year plan and aren't just going to be thinking, shit, we've got to make more stuff. There were ancient aliens that no one had ever seen before, maybe? Like, hopefully, that's the case, and I really hope that's what they're going for, and they're going to stretch it out and kind of, take the time with different bits, not just jam it all in our face in the first go.
Like Halo became what it became over 11 years of games, multimedia stuff, books, novels, comics. I mean, the very first Halo game was vague on a lot of things, and I'm not going to dismiss the story of that, but it wasn't like the thing that we remember it for now. That first game left a lot of questions, and I kind of feel that this obviously has far more and is far, way more vague than Halo was, but I'm in a quite forgiving for the joy that I've had playing the thing. I can be quite forgiving for that stuff. But
well, it's funny you should mention that because I hadn't really thought about that with regards to the first Halo, but the feeling that I had when I played that game for the first time was, and this relates to Destiny absolutely, was if I was 10 years old, this for me would be like being in Star Wars. I feel like I'm in Star Wars, but when I played that first Halo, everything just looked. I felt really small within a universe that was incredible, and it took my breath away. And perhaps the reason that they've done what they've done with regards to the story is Halo 2 is an interesting example of a game which, storytelling-wise, did exactly the right thing, because it brought in the Arbiter's Tale, and you played half the game as the Arbiter, and it was certainly sieging the story in the right direction. From a gameplay perspective, I didn't want to play half the game as not being the Master Chief. So I'm wondering if that is part of the reason they've done what they've done, but also I just have the inkling that what they've done is they've taken the big picture and they've cut it up into jigsaw puzzles, and they're laying down random pieces, and with each bit of DLC and every little sort of weekly challenge or special mission, that they're sort of slowly knitting them together into something that's bigger, but could be expanded on in any direction that they're not committed to.
Well, I've heard the story. They have started in the middle, and it's going to unfold forwards and backwards. We're going to find out what happened before, and then do the stuff that happens in the future, obviously. So apparently it is going to fold both ways, so things aren't necessarily going to make sense right off the bat. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, already there's people are kind of running with what they've been given and coming up with their own theories on what it all means. And my favourite is that the Guardians are not the good guys. We're actually the villains of the piece. We're holding the Traveller. He's imprisoned. It's imprisoned, and we're the ones keeping it here. And I kind of I like that. It could. Oh yeah. And every time I'm playing now, every time I'm knocking down Fallen and punching Fallen in the face, it's like you got this little voice in the back of your head saying, "Yeah, I'm the bastard now." And it's just,
Well, it's the way that the Hive will have names they're all called Acolyte and Knight and stuff, aren't they? You're like, ooh, are they actually good?
The funny thing is, within that regard, you often see them fighting one another. And this Reddit piece that I looked at as well was saying that there was a character that was originally in there and was seen on the early trailers called Crow,
Right.
and he would guide you through the early parts of the game, but basically that his interpretation of what's happened was that the Traveler brought the darkness, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, there seems to be quite a lot going on within people guessing, and I'm wondering if that's along with the Grimoire cards as well. I'm wondering if that's another.
Have you read?
I've been reading these things as you've been.
I've been reading them slowly because my phone hates the app. God, just put them in the fucking game. Like, that's the only real anger I have with the Grimoire cards. Just put them in the game. Let me read them on the screen there, please. Like, I get really annoyed having to read them on the app because it's so fucking slow. But it's really interesting.
I need to go on the website for that stuff. But
But judging from this piece as well, that the Grimoire cards, someone was hired to write those in February of this year. So I'm guessing a lot of these changes have kind of come down to the wire, and you don't know if it's Activision going, we need something to be put out, or if it's Bungie just going, like what happens at the end of every project. We'll do this. If we do this, they're just taking the pieces and fitting something together into something that they feel they can release. But
yeah, I mean, it's one of them things where I see a lot of people speculating on pointing the finger at Activision for interfering, and the game's a mess because of them, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I was putting for them to have put up $500 million for this thing, I feel they must have had faith in what Bungie were telling them, showing them. So I'm willing to just go along for the ride with this because,
Well, I like the fact that, I mean, with regards to the game not being an open world and stuff.
That's a weird one, isn't it? Because there's so much.
Sort of is.
Yeah, the areas are massive. Like when you go when you do the patrol map and you just go from one end of it to the other, and like you said, every inch of that map is different. And there's something to see. I love reading signs on the walls and just getting into every little nook and cranny to see what. I'm looking for ghosts mainly. It's like, people say, "Oh, why don't you just YouTube it?" And I said, "No, that buzz that you get when you find one, it's like, man, how many times have I walked past here and it's right there?"
But I think that the way that they've broken each section up is, it puts me in mind of Arkham Asylum versus Arkham City, that I preferred how focused Asylum was to City. I just thought it just seemed incredibly well designed, and something that's often brought up about game design is, when you think of a level, can you imagine exactly how you go through it or how you'd reach destinations? Or, Dark Souls is a classic one from this. I can tell you now, if you put me in my head, if I land on Earth and in old Russia, I can tell you exactly where I'd go. I can tell you exactly where I'd hide. The bits where there's the first sort of drop down of the tank, and that amazing thing with the planes where once you've got a sparrow, you can cannon yourself up one of the wings and stuff. You go down from there, and you've got that sort of canyon where you first get the splash off the back of the sparrow, and I know where I'm going in that game in my head, and that to me always suggests not only good design but something that's truly memorable.
Yeah. I mean, truly memorable. Yeah, that game. It's given me moments that, even when I'm talking to people who aren't gamers and I'm trying to explain it, and it's a weird thing because, like you're saying earlier, like if you were a kid, this would be your Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, like, I've grown up throughout all video games and stuff, and it's like I still get a buzz out of what they're giving us now, and I think there's sometimes I don't want to sound dismissive, but sometimes you listen to younger gamers and there's a lack of appreciation of what is like, they dismiss things offhand. Oh, it's boring, it's crap. And it's like, dude, if you've got any idea on what you're doing here, it's like these people running around there, that character there you can see over there, that's somebody on this planet, somebody else playing this game, totally doing his own thing whilst I'm doing my thing, and I said, it's like I get these moments all the time in Destiny where you like, particularly on Venus, because obviously there's a quite an increase in the difficulty on some of those bosses, on those characters wandering around. And like I was going where the Vaulted Glass area is, and you've got those Axis Praetorians wandering around, and those guys are hard. Like if you're below like 20, they're going to give you a real hard time. And every now and again you go through and you can see some poor like level 14 getting his arse kicked, and it's like, just jump off the Sparrow, pull out the sniper, and start pumping rounds into the thing, and then it's like that goes down. I see him, I wave, he waves back, and that's it. And it's just like, and then I get back on my Sparrow and off I go. Like that's it. This brief moment of interaction, but it's like, how awesome is that? This guy doing his own thing, thinking, oh fuck, I'm gonna die again, and then suddenly like this stranger comes out of nowhere, takes out the fucking villain, and then sods off. And I just thought, just the fact that you can do this in a game, and it's actually another player that you're helping out, and that whole kind of just random stuff that kicks off. And it's just, I get such a buzz out of it when I'm playing it. It's like, it's fucking awesome.
It's so fucking cowboy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Get your back, fool.
But I get on my Sparrow and ride off into the sunset. It's just like...
But it is
have a little dance, get on the Sparrow and fuck off.
on the single player, it feels like the lone gunman against the frontier. But there's been so many moments where I've been catching my breath and wondering if I can handle what's coming towards me. And yet I've played those same levels as co-op, and it just feels like, we're the Magnificent Seven, but three of us. But you know what I mean? It just feels like you can hear the dun dun like in the back of your head. You might as well.
I say now I've enjoyed playing a lot of shooters with a lot of people. And, Battlefield 3 was one. Nearly 700 hours in on that game, and it was like. But I have to say, this is to me the most social shooter I've ever played. The way that, like, the moment I'm hitting the tower, people, randoms are saying, "Do you want to play?" They want to team up, and I've met a whole bunch of people through playing it, and I've never really had this with other games, because even like something like Battlefield, it feels very. You tend to play with your squad who and you go in and you stay as that insular little group for the most time. Whereas this has never felt like it's been really amazing to sort of just, you constantly get, being a level 29 helps as well, because it's, let's get him.
He'll do.
Like, and you go, sort of. But
there's an irony in the fact that it is the most social shooter, and people are so friendly, and yet there's no voice chat.
Yeah.
And the fact
outside
that
of fire teaming.
Yeah, and the fact that you can see somebody over yonder who's underpowered, who you don't know at all and can't identify by anything other than their name, and yet your instinct is, I'm going to help you out, mate.
Yeah.
What's that about? But it's there in all of us. And I just find that a joy. And, we've, especially when we've been underleveled as well. Those moments when people have pitched in to help us out, that's pretty cool. And even amidst the firefight, you might do a little point and then have a boogie and then like bugger off again. Yeah. But the fact that there's that little giggle amidst it doesn't shatter any tension, or it just is. And I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you find that you've been talking more as well, like when you've been on the mic? I mean, because I've been playing a lot more with like friends on my friend list that I've never once played a single game with. That I'll add you, and then you never talk to them again. But I've been hopping in with loads of different people because like I say, every fucker's playing it. But when you're playing on like the proper difficulties, not on normal so much, but on like hard and upwards, when you're fighting a proper thing. you are talking every second. You're going, right, you watch out there. You've got a big guy coming, and you take it there. If you've got any grenades, yeah, okay, pop your grenade. And every fucking second you're talking. And you're saying, right, you go there. I'll snipe that one. You watch out. You've got some hive coming. Like me and CJ, we talk.
Yeah, I mean the
constantly.
guys we're playing with at the moment, and it's like when we figured out you could string supers together. So you know once we figured out what those orbs of light do, and it's like, oh wait a minute, they're charging my. Oh yeah, probably can do this, and it's like we're telling each other what we're going to do it so you can pick up the orbs and trigger yours, and then you're doing that to them, and you can string these things like so effectively. And I said that when people dismiss the game as just a boring shooter, it's like, dude, you've no idea how much depth is in the combat, like and all this kind of stuff. But it's just it's insane at times, like how. And I would never have, and I'm a slight tangent here, but I didn't believe I would be laughing so much at people dancing in a video game. I saw somebody. Well, the other night we were doing the strike on Mars, where you've got to go after Val Tarek, and so how he comes out of those big steel doors open, he walks out, and then he has this little moment where he sort of pulls the gun up, shoots the ceiling up, and stuff. I saw a female warlock run right towards him. I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? He's coming. You can't do anything. You can't. And then suddenly she breaks into a dance right in front of the boss. And I had tears in my eyes laughing at this, because it's just, and so now every time I'm doing that mission, it's this thing now where you run towards the boss and quickly try and get a jive in before it all kicks off. And it's like, see who can last the longest before it gets taken out. And it's just, doing little like jigs in the most inappropriate moments in a mission has become a real thing at the moment, and it's hysterical.
So I love that, and I love as well, like in the tower, like on the same note, in the first couple of weeks particularly, everyone's running around, where you're going to see the Cryptarch and you're picking up bounties, and then someone finds the football, and everybody loses their shit, and you see everyone just start running at this thing. And
doing those running slides is absolutely brilliant. When you get it right and the ball goes forward rather than off to a left or right, it's just like, that was awesome.
And that moment where someone kicks it off the edge, and at least two people will always jump off after it. No, get the ball.
We had a thing last night where the place that the Cryptarch trades, we went behind his table and started pointing at people that were coming up to the Cryptarch, and they were just waving at us and then going, and then the people were coming up and we were like pointing at them.
Would you like to try a revitalizing tonic?
It was just it was so much fun. But
I could spend an hour behind that table.
But it is interesting that the majority of the people that are talking about Destiny on the net seemingly are slagging it off, and the people that love it are seemingly playing it to death still. But even sort of respected critics seem to struggle to say exactly why they love it, or to break the game down and try and encapsulate exactly what it is. And I think that's part of why it's so special. I mean, I remember sort of Matt Lee saying on the Daft Souls podcast that he just likes going out and shooting people in the head, and he still had the same gun for ages, but he just really enjoys doing that.
The melee is so good.
Yes,
it's so satisfying as well. It's like I've usually, and it's such a hard thing to get right in a game. Melee is awkward because of the sort of first-person perspective and distance judging and all that kind of thing. I've often struggled with melee combat in video games. It's a nightmare trying to knife people with Battlefield. I'd always misjudge it, and you just swing in the knife in thin air in front of them, and then they turn around and realise what you're trying to do and shoot you in the face. But with this, it's like it's got this nice kind of visceral, heavy chunk to it when you hit something, and it's like, and it's really satisfying watching sort of the Vandal go flying off into the wall or something. But
there are those moments though as well where something's coming towards you and you've got very little energy left, and it just feels like you're going like, just like you're slapping them across the face.
It's like a slap match, doesn't it? Where he slaps you, you slap him, and it's like you can hear the beep 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 your light bulb, and it's like, I'm gonna take you, and it's just that whoever gets that last hit in before.
I can get him one more time. I've got one more. I can do one more. I find that happens a lot. Like I think that amplifies when you get to a certain mission on the moon. The mission, the Sword of Crota.
Sword of Crota.
Man.
Did anybody pick that thing up and not swear with absolute delight?
Yeah, because you got it. On our first run, you picked the sword up. And I'm stood there. I think we were doing it with Laura Rich, weren't we? Podcast Maverick, Laura Rich. And we stood there, and I'm looking at you running around with a sword thinking, oh, are you having fun? Like, what's going on? I just got this gun, but I want that. Why can't I have that? And I did it on my own again later, and then just understood. Oh, now I see.
Yeah,
it's a fucking belter.
Yeah, it is. I mean, part of me wants to have a match where it's just everybody running around with great big dirty swords, because it would be just for the lols, you know? It would just be hysterical to see everybody just wailing into each other with those things.
It'd be interesting for something that they could perhaps bring to the Crucible. If it was just like a Crota match or something like that.
Oh.
But there was the point where we first played that Sword of Crota bit, and it just said pick up the sword, and it was like, what? And they picked up, no, and then it throws something big at you, which you still have to kind of run from, and you suddenly got this moment of absolute power where you start swinging it, you're like, oh my god, and then you swing it at something that just like batters you, and you're like, oh no.
I mean, I'm really keen on, like, you know, they sort of somebody discovered those hooks for the DLC, and they were saying, and it seems that Crota is going to make a return. The stuff was to do with Crota, and I thought, oh, okay, this could be, because his sword just disappears, doesn't it? So I'm kind of hoping, it isn't finished, I hope it isn't destroyed, because, I want that down.
I want it back. Anyway. Why can't we just keep it? Let us keep it. Let us have that as another class.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm again with the pinch of salt thing, and until it's actually coming out, but it's quite possible it's all there. It's in they need to put. I guess they put the hooks in there so when they release it, it all fits within what they've established and stuff. So I don't know. It's a game where I'm not going out of my way to read that kind of stuff, because I want to be surprised with it when it comes out. Because I'm sold on DLC for this. So, I mean,
God, yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's just give me more now.
I just think that a lot of this stuff. I mean, I know they were saying like there was a player that sort of glitched in and saw a little bit of it, but I'm the sort of deliciously skeptical part of me sort of goes, the loot cave wasn't a glitch. The loot cave was planned.
No.
And I know, and the way that they were like, oh, we want people to play the game properly and stuff, and we'll patch that out. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, another one appears slightly. They know what they're doing. They just want to get people excited and trying stuff.
No, disagree. I disagree entirely. The loot cave is the worst thing that's ever existed.
Well, I mean, how much of a game breaker do you think? Because like I read what was going on. Now the thing is, like, at that point I think level 25 or level 26. I'm not getting any good stuff out of these drops anymore. And even doing a loot cave is literally just going to give me a load of stuff that I got to scrap because it's worthless. The only way I'm getting high-end armors at that point was to buy them.
And that's my problem with it, is that people complained, like, oh, we're not getting enough good. Could you stood there shooting at a cave in the first area for an hour? That isn't that's not becoming legend. You're shooting a hole. Go shoot a big thing, and then you'll get a reward, you shitlord. Like, you didn't earn any of the stuff you just got. You stood and shot at a cave, you coward. Fuck off and play the game. And, like, you do a strike. I was doing a strike mission. Not a strike, sorry. A daily event thing popped down.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the walkers or something. I was like, oh, no, the walker. Oh, there's loads of people out there. They'll come help. And they just kept shooting the fucking cave. Like, is no one going to shoot this with me? No, just me. Oh, okay, I'm going to lose. Like, it's actively ruined areas where they exist.
There's a point on Venus that you can do this with as well, but obviously that was the one that was in Cosmodrome was spawning a lot quicker, like it's every 30 seconds. But it was less than that even. I think it was like every 6 seconds they were spawning in, weren't they? So they were just constantly streaming through. But there's a point on Venus where there's a room right just before you sort of get to the wild area. If you go through the city at the start, there's a little room. You have to do it in the story because you have to trigger the thing to get your sparrow. But there's quite often a servitor, a couple of vandals, and about 3 dregs that spawn in that room. And I've used that room before for like when you've got to kill like 20 enemies for a bounty, you know, and or get parts. That's a good place to do it because you can go in, take them out, walk out, go around the corner, come back again, and they're there again. It's respawned. So, but the truth is that all the areas respawn. So if you're patient enough, you can do this. And I'm quite a patient player with this stuff. I will go off for a minute and collect some spirit bloom and then come back and nuke a lot of them in the room again. And it's just, and I never get bored of doing that stuff. Some people will be like, "I can't play the game, man," and it's just like, I am playing the game just my way. If you don't like it, sod off.
But you're still shooting them properly though. Like you're not just firing at the place they're coming out of with a spawning. Like it's not just point at a hole and sit still. You're actually running around and shooting them, right?
Well, no, I'm sitting back with my sniper rifle and popping them in the head.
Oh, you're still aiming.
Yeah. I mean, my rifle's called the Supremacy, which is just, and I love this gun, love it. And it's just like it can take a servitor out with a single shot to that eye, and it's just like, it's so satisfying to do that, man.
Ooh,
have you named your ships or vehicles at all?
I haven't named the ships or vehicles. No, I'm currently. I went to Zure, you know, the weekend vendor, and this weekend or weekend just gone, and I was saying, okay, let's see what he's got, and I didn't realize he sold. He didn't have them the week before, but he had them this week, which are upgrades for rare sparrows. And I've got a rare sparrow.
Really?
But it increases the speed, which is always good anyway, because you just want to be a show-off and blitz around the place like. But it also changes the colour of your trail at the back, which I thought, I've got to have that. Ooh. Yeah, and it's 23 strange coins, and I've got like 14 left because I bought a bloody. Before I realised this, I bought a bloody helmet off him just to scrap for parts, and it's like, why did I just waste that? I could have had that. So now I'm like going around trying to get the strange coins because I really want this. I want this red trail on the back of my bike.
You watch. He won't have it next week.
I know he won't.
Maybe not the week after that, but the week after that, you've got nothing.
I'm not spending.
But it'll be the wrong colour.
Well, I can do with purple. If it's purple, I'm fine as well. But it's just, I'm not spending any more strange coins until I get that thing. I want the speed anyway. I mean, it's give me a little boost to that as well. It's cool.
Well, this there's a friend of mine who's a really big science fiction fan, and he's not a gamer, and he always takes notice of things like Halo, and I knew he'd like the look of Destiny as well. But he mentioned something with regards to the Sparrow, where he said that that's a really iconic noise that it makes, that you could hear the burst of the Sparrow's engine going, and it's like, that's fantastic. You'd know it anywhere. I was like, hadn't really thought of that before, but you're right.
Well, it's the pod racer from Star Wars, isn't it? It's like, if you like, there's so much of this with Destiny. It's one of the things that I actually love, where some people have. And it's funny how we can have these kind of opposing perspectives on things. Like a certain percentage of, shall I say, idiots out there will just, all right, no, that's not fair, is it? But but people will like criticize the game for basically just ripping everything off. Like it's just like, whereas I see it and think, well, to me, it's just paying homage to this stuff. And so what if it has a familiar sound effect for stuff? To me, that's just, and people have said that there's a lot of Mass Effect in the game, which, I can see that. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, I just feel that, that's just maybe one of the reasons that I like it so much, because I love those games, but the noise of the Sparrow, it's like, I really want that sound effect just to, that's like a phone ringtone, isn't it? And it just,
There was with regards to like Star Wars stuff, the bit that got me, and it was the part where the game and the beta kind of dropped anchor in my soul and just went, oh yeah, was the bit where you first get to your ship and the ghost is going to try and fire it up, and you see the engines whirring, and it almost does that Star Wars Han Solo trying to run back to the Millennium Falcon thing. It does like a dun da da dun. Da, 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 dun, da, 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 and then the dun, 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 like kicks in over the top, and I'm like, oh, because the music is incredible in the game as well.
Yeah, I was listening to the soundtrack the other day. It's just, but it's a weird, like in the game, it funnily enough, when I'm listening to just the soundtrack, it doesn't sound as strange a mix as it does in the game at times. Because in the game, sometimes you think, right, that's a Marty McDonald track. You know, you just hands down, it's like, you know, it sounds familiar. But then there's other tracks that are almost like very matrixy and very kind of like, there's a particular track. I should actually do a comparison mix or something to sort of highlight this stuff, because there's one track that actually really does sound like a particular track on one of the Matrix films. And it's very techno driven.
What you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, this is, and then at times it feels like, I know there was some kerfuffle between those guys, and there's like 3 people credited or 4 people credited for the soundtrack, and so you feel that there's been a sort of shift in for some reason, you know, other people were coming on board at some point during development, whatever. But at times it sounds like that, but that's not to say that it doesn't work across the board. Every time I'm playing it, it's like, yeah, you know, particularly with strikes and stuff, when the music kicks in, it really hits all
the lifts come up, don't they? And you're like, whoa, yeah. It's on.
Yeah, and it knows how to keep it going. You know, because the music, when you're in those moments, you know, and you're all kind of hunkered down behind cover and just fragging the hell out of things, and whether it's that awful guy or beast in the summoning pits. And it's just like, that was the one strike that drove me insane.
Fogoth, I think his name is, isn't it?
Fog, yeah, that's it. But it says level 12, and it's just like, oh, come on. You know, I was level 22 before I took him down, and he was like, yeah.
Yeah, those strikes are nails wherever you are, I think.
There's the mission where you kind of, there's a big sort of bay door and it's sort of an old factory, and just out from that there are 2 ships that spawn in and just start throwing loads and loads of stuff from either side, and that was the point where the music was just so good atop the action. And Hollywood seems to have this thing whereby it will put gunfire and explosions above a soundtrack these days. And yet it just felt like whatever was going on, you know, with the guns and stuff was secondary to this huge piece of orchestral music that just rose above the top of it. And, you know, I knew what was happening with what we were shooting or what we were going for, but this music just caressed my heart. It was incredible.
I think that video games can do some amazing stuff that nothing else can do with soundtracks, because like the one where you've got to kill Draxus, you know, the guy where you've got to work your way through the caves and then onto the ship and find the throne room. But as you walk in, like going into that sort of just before you get on the ship, the soundtrack kicks in. But at each point you kind of reach a certain point on the map, an extra layer then kicks in on the soundtrack. And otherwise it just remains like, at the start it's just like a percussion beat. And then they add like what sound like strings on top of that once you actually drop down onto sort of the final bit before you get up on the ramp. And it's like it's triggered. And so you've got this kind of emergent soundtrack as you're playing that, you know, it only layers bits once you get to this point. And if you stay up there for 15 minutes, it will literally just stay as that percussion beat until you move. And I thought this is something that like video games can do this. It's not the first game to do that kind of thing. But films and stuff, they can't touch this stuff. And in a way, it shows one of the strengths for video games, because it's like, you know, it's just having this kind of, you know, way that the soundtrack kind of evolves as you're playing. It's amazing. And at times the score,
reminds me of a bit of your recent Brutal Legend podcast, if I remember the very, very first part where you get the axe and you've got Black Sabbath's Children of the Grave just going bum ba da ba da bum ba da.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and you grab the axe and then it kicks in. You're like, fucking yes.
Yeah,
it's that exact bit.
I think sometimes though with soundtracks that emerge in that kind of way, somehow they can just seem like they've got, you know, a beat that's just got something slight layered onto it. That's got something slight laid onto it, but to have something as focused and as brilliantly composed as this, broken down into those layers, and yet it's still it doesn't feel like it's just adding a layer of frosting all the time. It's something big, and it makes your heart swell when it happens. And there's been so many moments where the soundtrack has given me shivers on top of what's going off, and that's just the coolest thing. So what kind of class are you going with?
I've got all three on the go at the moment.
you really are indeed.
You're indeed.
Well, I've got to the point now with my Titan, which is the level 29, that I can't actually get to any further with this now unless I do the Vault of Glass. Mm-hmm. That's now become the bane of my life for playing Destiny, because until the others that I play with. Sorry?
Who has 12 hours free these days?
Is it that long? Because I've heard differing things on this. Now, the thing is, the group that did it, I saw the stats on the first lot that did it, and it was like, when I saw 1,487 kills to 883 deaths or whatever it was, I was like, whoa, because like the most I've got in a single strike was something like 100. So it's just like, how epic is this? And there is part of me that does want to let's do this. But I was looking into it because apparently you can check checkpoints, doesn't it? So you don't have to do the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah, I think you can break it up into is it something like 4 sittings?
Well, there's 4 bosses on that thing. If you look on the I'm looking on the website, and you can see like all the sort of strike stuff, and it's broken. There's 4 squares underneath. You've got basically 2 levels to do this on, so you can do it at level 26 and at level 30, and there's 4 squares. So I'm assuming that those are the bosses because it's under the bosses looted thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe that you can checkpoint. However, the strike resets every week. So I think if you're going to do it, you've got to do it within 7 days.
Yeah.
I think timing is important with it. So you want to literally start it at the start, just after it's reset. So you've got a full week to do it in. So it's the coordination part of it, which is proving to be sort of tricky, because everybody has to be, obviously you won't let you do it unless you're 26. But if people, like I'm confident to go into it now because I'm 3 levels above anything that I'm coming up against, and I kind of feel that that's the safe way of doing it. Like get to level 27, level 28, and then we hit it, because we're going to have the advantage in terms of combat then, in terms of how many shots we're going to have to use to drop these things. At level 26 you've got a fight on your hands, whereas level when you start increasing those levels, it does get a lot easier in terms of having to fight stuff. So
I suppose you need to coordinate with the 6 people that you do it with as well. Like I suppose you need the same 6 people, and getting 6 people to do something is a nightmare.
Yeah, no, I see today that the Eurogamer's written this. They've had an interview with one of the guys. They're talking about potentially opening up to matchmaking, but I can see why they haven't, because you do need to you kind of need to be with the same people, and I guess communication is key to this, because you do need to coordinate in a far greater sort of depth than you've done perhaps even on the current strikes. And even those, I mean, you do the current strikes on like levels 26 and above and stuff, and they get like quite stressful if people aren't doing, if like you're barking instructions to people, and if they're not paying attention, and then you've got to revive them over and over and over again, then it does get a little bit like, will you bloody well listen to me?
This is the point where the most social game becomes that breaks down.
The guys I was playing with the other night, and I've played with them now for a couple of weeks, and they're sound people, but there was just one of these guys wasn't listening, and it was on the Mars strike with Valtorek, and it's like you've got the 2 platforms left and right, and he walks in between those. Now, the guy was going on the left-hand side as you walk into that room, so you've got 1 crate on that top, and you've got literally things coming from all angles with you, and you're up to all kinds of crap on that, because you're exposed on a far greater level than you are on the right hand side. And we kept having to go across and revive. Now, every time we did this, one of us would get dropped, because we were doing it on level 26. We weren't screwing around with that, and it was like, Yeah, and so 6 times he did this. 6 times he went over on the other side, and 6 times one of us would revive him, get killed, and then there's 2 that need reviving. Now, the problem with that is if you've got a lot of, as there is on this, a lot of cabal, and you've got the boss shooting and he then everything focuses on the one surviving player, and so you're stuffed at that point because you can't do anything. All you can do is potentially just leg it and do a leap across and try and make it in one jump or 2 rather. But it's like, and if you don't, you're screwed because everything is shooting at you, and it's just crazy. But it's like after like the 6th time, and it was like 2 hours we've been on doing this. And it's like, dude, will you please stay together so that at least if one of us drops, we're within walking distance to you. Yeah. And then the one time he did it, we clonked it. It was done, and it was like, there. Now, can you please, because I'm several levels higher than you, and I've played a hell of a lot more. Listen to me. It's just. But it was just. But don't get me wrong. I mean, it's just. It was fun, but it was like it was getting to that stressful level, and I can imagine that the Volta Glass is like that times 10. So
it's funny once.
Yeah.
When you're going back and forth going, I've fallen down again, I've fallen down again, I've fallen down again, oh, I've fallen down again. It's funny one time.
You can't leave them though. That's the thing. The temptation is just say, sod you can watch for the rest of the match.
Sometimes you just have to though.
Yeah, but you can't on harder settings.
Because they don't auto respawn after 30 seconds.
No, that's it. Only on only on easy, and I think maybe on normal you get the 30-second respawn. But on the harder settings, as soon as you go into the hard and heroic settings on those things, there's no respawn. Somebody has to revive you, so they will literally sit out that. Now, when you've got so many enemies that come in on these things, you cannot you survive if there's only like 2 of you. You've got to get everybody in. That's why the strikes have the matchmaking. That's why they have to be 3 people.
Yeah,
that is one of the real pulls for the game as well. Like, when you go into the harder settings, it changes everything that you've been. I've done 100. I'm just looking at my stats now. I've done 144 strikes, and and there's only like 6 of them.
Jesus Christ!
I know, that's it. But I've never got bored of any one of them because each time, I mean, I've done a lot with the same group, but I often play with just complete randoms with this, and that's the beauty of the game is it works. I've never had so little trouble in terms of knowing, like everybody knows what they've got to do, and it's very sort of straightforward in that regard, and people just run and they know how to do stuff, and you don't have to kind of dictate any kind of commands or anything. It's all kind of just kill it. It's just
playing with randoms because you learn different ways of doing it as well. I've run the first strike, the Devil's Lair one, loads of times. I'm still only like level 20. I just enjoy that one so much. I keep doing it. And the last time I did it, the guys just went and stood right by where the enemy spawn. Usually people I have, you shove Peter Dinklage in the hole. And then you sort of wait by that bit for them to come. These guys just stood right by the doors, just waiting for them to come.
That's how we're all doing it now with rocket launchers. It's just, and when I was saying earlier about stringing the supers together, that is the best part to do it on because you're so close to one another. So there's like, you get the first wave that come in through those 2 back doors, and you've got captains on each one. So I tend to focus on the captains because if they go down, everything else is piss compared to that.
Oh yeah, totally.
So you take those guys down. Then you get the robots coming out, but they can be taken out with you literally just line up the pistol and just hand cannon them each one as they come out. It's almost like, and then you by that you quickly run around, grab the orbs of light, and then it's recharged and ready for the next wave. And there are times it almost feels like with that particular mode, if you're doing it on the less, it's like speed run, and it's so. I get such a kick out of seeing how people have really got to grips with this stuff, and it's like everybody just knows the beats, and it's like almost rhythm action. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like super hand cannon. Scout rifle, snipe that guy. And you just all right, you could say it's predictable in terms of what's coming out of what door, but there's something quite satisfying of doing that as well. So it's just
they need the Unreal Tournament guy over the top, don't they? Double kill, multi-kill, monster kill.
See, how do you guys feel about the actual announcer on the Crucible match? Because I've seen a lot of hate for this guy.
Well, we've both. I mean, me and CJ, I can probably speak for him as well. We're both shit at the Crucible.
Yeah, I am.
We're really. I tried it last night. I thought, you know what, I'm going to grab some Crucible bounties. I'm going to have a go because I've run out all my Vanguard ones. I haven't got any Queen one I can do. So, we'll try the Crucible. Got utterly battered over and over. Wasn't even paying attention to the guy.
I have to admit, at first I thought it was Terence Stamp. I didn't realise it was Lenny James.
Is it Lenny James?
Yeah, it's Lenny James because it sounds just like Terence Stamp, and I was like, God, General Zod's telling me how shit I am. don't do this.
Oh, I didn't think it was Stamp, but I didn't know it was Lenny James doing the voice. That's cool.
Yeah. But I'm poor at it. But I've seen that there's been people like Andy Hamilton and Tamor Hussein who haven't massively clicked with the main game, who were stupendously addicted to the Crucible, and they think it's one of the best multiplayer games that they've played. So it's interesting that there's that.
Probably because they're good at it.
Yeah.
Well, I think I steer clear of the Crucible for ages, but I went on it this weekend because you get these Vanguard missives that come up on the bounties every I don't know what triggers them. I think it's every X number of bounties you do.
They pip,
that you get these. Yeah, and so they're off. In a way, they're how you get a lot of the exotic armor, exotic weapons particularly. So I did one of these originally. It was Fang Cannon, and as soon as you got to the Crucible section, because obviously there's like multi-layers to these exotics to unlock them, and as soon as it got to where I had to do Crucible, I abandoned it and dumped it. I thought, I'm not doing that, because I've been in early on. I went in for a couple of matches just to see how he played and what it was about, and got absolutely pummeled.
Yeah,
and you think, that was painful, but because I kept getting these bounties come up where I had to do it, I thought, no, I've got to face my fears with this, and I went into it, and sure, I got, it basically was like get 5,000 points. So I realised even when I lost, I still came out with a couple of hundred. So I thought, okay, it's going to take a while, but I can do this. But it's surprisingly quick to pick up. Like you soon get, the maps are really well designed because they're really quite straightforward and very simple. I guess they remind me a bit of Halo maps, and they're not like these epic, detailed kind of intricate sort of map design. Yet surprisingly, there's depth to it. There's strategic sort of advantages if you know the map as it is, but it's not a hard one to pick up, and you soon get to your bearings very quickly on these things, and then you soon sort of. The problem I had was I had to kind of switch my class around a bit because like in the single player and co-op side of things, I'm playing it as a tank. So I've got all my armor stats up, but whereas in the sort of Crucible, I've got to kind of boost I swap out my perks for like agility and recovery, because that stuff is far more useful in that. And it's like, I've messed around with the idea of having two separate classes, two separate characters, one for multiplayer, one for thingy. But obviously, I'm going in with shit guns, and that ain't going to help, is it?
This is on top of the multiple characters that you play as anyway.
I found that like certain weapons just don't bring them. Like I'm a hand cannon man myself. Like I really like it.
Well, that's what I use. That's what I've been using.
I'm a one shot, one kill kind of guy. Hand cannon, sniper rifles, rocket launchers. Boom, you're dead. Doesn't work so well in the Crucible. Like even when I've got the drop on someone, it's like bam, bam, bam. They turn around, dead. Like
it depends. I do find the hand cannon quite effective sometimes, but then I've got an exotic hand cannon that does actually it's a legendary one called what's his name? Because the devil which is a strange name to call it, but he does 300 attacks, so it's like
But aren't the level advantages in that disabled on the multiplayer? Or does that still do?
They are,
does that still do crazy dams?
But what I tend to do is combine that with a punch. So it's like punch. You do get. They are quite good for getting headshots, hand cannons. Like you can quick pull, aim, fire, and it will tend to. I get hits. They're fairly accurate.
Yeah.
So I found that like you go in, if I can get the drop on somebody, it's either stop. I was being a bastard the other night because I hide behind doorways. I was getting arse kicked on one map, so I hid in the doorway and waited for people to come in and punch them in the back of the head and then finish them off with a pistol. And it's the first time in an age I actually got an abusive text after we finished the game. This random player, okay, just sort of like camping whore was the message I got, and I was like, oh, I must be doing something right, but it's like. But yeah, I just send them one back saying like "whiny baby," and then mute blocked him so he couldn't reply back. So I'll get the last word in just to wind him up. But it's just. But I've started to get to grips with it, and I'm playing. I think the figuring out what your mode is as well on Crucible counts as well. Like I play a lot of Control because it is one that you can accumulate a lot of points on, even if you lose and do badly.
Yeah.
Because you can capture flags and you're getting all that kind of extra stuff with it.
That's what I like. I like being, the guy that's doing the mission, not shooting the guy.
Yeah.
I'm better at the mission. That's what it sounds really stupid. That's what I quite liked about Killzone Shadowfall's multiplayer. I could go and do the stuff and not worry too much about shooting the guys. I was like, oh, I'm being effective. Woo.
There is something about pulling supers though, when people are trying to capture flags and you just come and drop straight in on them with the sort of,
I've had mixed experience with supers on the cruise. I say I played it for about half an hour last night, and Titans. Jesus Christ! Just like, oh, there's a Titan. Oh, I'm dead. And I play a hunter myself. I've gone
Warlocks and hunters particularly on Crucible because they've got the throwing knives and the fast.
No, I don't have that. I've gone with the blade dancer current hunter because the super, you don't get the golden gun, but you get the stab. I've been killed as I've been powering it up. And it's like, well, man, like, surely it should give you half a second to get it alive. But yeah, I was getting just ripped apart by supers just the whole time. It wasn't fun. I went back to running around the moon instead and had far more fun. But I found myself, I'm not good at PvP. I'm very, very bad at it. And I think I've learned now that the Crucible's probably not going to be for me.
Well, at some point you're going to run out of weapons, aren't you?
I know, and that bums me out. It's like, I can't do any better.
I think we're going to have a concerted Crucible evening and stuff, and see if we can crack it and see sort of what goodies we can get from it, because there's still stuff that I'm seeing with regards to armor and weapons that I can't get near because I've not got certain marks. So I know this is the way that they've kind of led people into having a pop at it, and I think it's a clever way of doing so. So I'm gonna have to delve in and have a bit of a rejig, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of grown over the years of playing shooters. I see a lot of the same arguments all the time. So people will say, I go in and I get my arse kicked, and so that's it, I'm done with it. And it's like, but that's kind of how every shooter is these days. You can't go into a game of Battlefield or anything and expect to, if you don't know the map, if you don't know how it actually plays, and whilst you can take a lot of your kind of skills and attributes from the single. I keep referring to it as single player, but it always seems like it's a completely wrong term to use for this game, co-op. But you take it into that and take it into the multiplayer. It doesn't necessarily translate as well. There's a different sort of sensibility to the multiplayer, which you can't, or the Crucible, which you have to kind of get to grips with. And it took me a while. I mean, it took me I stayed clear of it for like 2 weeks, and then because of I kept getting these damn bounties that. And in a way, you think, is that just clever game design? Where they're
I think so, yeah.
They're just saying, you're going to have to play it because, just for a bit at least. And usually by the point where I unlocked it, I kind of got to grips with it. And I was thinking, I might actually play a bit more of this. And then you start kind of getting into it, don't you? So.
Yeah, I think because the amount of bonuses they give you for going into the Crucible are so high, I think that there must be gambling on the fact that a few people might have a go at it almost reluctantly and kind of click with it and find it's another aspect of the game that, they may have been shepherded into, but they're loving as well as the other stuff, which is pretty cool, I think.
It is. It's like the carrot and the stick, only the stick is wielded by a bunch of bastard warlocks that give you a good hiding from it.
Well, as a Dark Souls nerd, the piece of exotic armor that I'm going for with my warlock is a piece of Dark Souls influenced armor, which is called Heart of the Praxic Fire. And on the description of it, it says, "In that last moment, she seemed as wholly luminescent as the sun, and I wished to be so brave." And there's kind of this design on the front of it, which is sort of in kind of these metal tags, but it almost looks like somebody praising the sun. And I'm like, what? And there is an ability on the armor called Praise the Sun. Further decreases all ability cooldowns while radiance is active. And I'm like, oh, this is purposeful, and I have to have it.
Yeah, that's totally deliberate on their parts as well, isn't it? The sort of connection.
Well, with you saying about kind of shepherding people towards the Crucible, the amount of times where I've seen a bounty on a board, whether it be the Witches bounties recently or just to gain experience, it's like, yeah, I've done that mission before. I've had absolutely no problem redoing missions over and over, and still flat out enjoyed them, even though I kind of know them back to front. It is almost like kind of watching a movie that I'm involved in.
The weird thing, and I only figured this out just the other week when we were doing, like, I'd done you got the daily story mission.
Yeah.
So I've done the daily story on my own, and no problem. I went through it fine. Went through it with two more guys. Well, the guys came on and we went through, we'll do this again. I don't mind doing it again. Mm-hmm. And it's a totally different game. It's totally different. The enemies were different. They were like shielded now, and they were yellow. And then it's like, what the hell? They weren't like this before. And it's like, it seems to scale based on how many players you got and maybe even the levels you are. Because although it says level 24 or something on these strikes when you're doing the the strike playlist, it seems a hell of a lot harder at times than just strike 24. It's like they might say 24 on the tag when you're doing it, but these guys are yellow shielded, and even my weapons, I've got to hammer them to drop their shields. I mean, it's like even now I'm struggling. You get those sort of the emergent sort of moments where you get like the war set come down and. There's one on the moon where you've got to kill a captain and he spawns near that ramp and it's, kill the target. And this guy, like, my hand cannon does 300 attack. My sniper is at 288. My rocket launcher is 267. I emptied everything into this guy and couldn't take his shield out. And I'm like, yeah, and last night, I've tried several times now, and last night we had this other guy come on, and he's quite powered up, and we managed to get his shield down and took a little tiny slither off his life before, and he has this sort of thing where he warps away and then re-shields, and it's oh, for God. Like, I feel that we need more than 6 of us to take this guy on, or like level 20s, high 20s, in order to really drop this guy. And he better drop some good shit afterwards, because it literally clears out. It's really annoying when you do it just before you start a mission, and then this thing comes up, and you think, oh, let's do this as well. Yeah. And then I start once he escaped. I literally had nothing left. I was like, I had to go and punch some enemies out just because I had no bullets, and it's just like, that's ridiculous.
The exact same thing happened somewhere in the Cosmodrome. Big guy drops, saying, "Oh, I can do this," and then after 5 minutes of futile pew-pews, you're like, oh, I've got nothing left. Absolutely dickle.
I think there's something to be said, though, for Bungie's AI in general, because they always said on Halo games that if you, while the game was set at normal, if you were proficient with shooters, that you should notch it up to heroic at least and have more of a challenge. And it was noted, again, it was Matt Leeds that said that it's almost, rather than the higher difficulties just making the enemies more of a bullet sponge. If anything, it feels like they've got this stupendous AI on the characters, and they just kind of make them a bit more obvious for like the lower levels when you play it. They'll kind of come out in a more obvious way or linger a little bit more, but when you get up to the higher difficulties, they start doing different stuff. They are coming at you much more aggressively, and that was something in the beta for me, where knowing this about Bungie stuff, where it gave you the option to do it on normal, or you could gain a little bit more experience by pitching the level slightly higher. As soon as I thought, I'm gonna have a pop at that. And there was this degree of so often that like, am I gonna get through this, or it just felt like I got this something to bite into. And I wonder if half of these journalists and games critics that were hammering through the game to give it a 6 after 2 weeks were just playing it through it as quickly as possible on the normal levels, and just so they could get to that review and stick a number on it.
Well, to a point, you can understand that they have, if you're writing for a professional site, you've got to get your review in, because you're competing with everybody out there, and this is your page views pay your wages and all the rest. So there's all those extra pressures on it, and I do feel that with a game like Destiny, it's a little unfair to sort of, it doesn't work in its favour, I guess, in that regard, and it's a difficult one to know how they can approach this in a manner that is kind of justifiable from their side, but also practical from the game's perspective. And I just don't know if they could, but it is something with the AI. It is amazing how different it feels as soon as you start going on to like heroic settings and up in the difficulty. It's like I was playing it with the early on, and the guys were saying, "Oh, let's do a level 26." Now they were level 25, and I'm saying that's a bad idea. Like, don't. And he said, "But you're level 28." He said, "You'll balance it out." And I said, "That's not how it works." Yeah. And it's like, "Trust me, we're going to have a hard time." And he's like, "We'll try anyway." Yeah, we had a hard time. We ended up bailing on the match because you can't. It doesn't work in that way. And like I said, trying to explain that their weapons are doing 20% less damage for every level that those enemies are higher than them. Mm-hmm. And so, like, if they were like 22 and you're going in at 26, what's the point? It's like, you're barely scratching the paintwork off their armor, It's just like, yeah, and I'm doing all the work. I'll keep having to revive them. That's what I ended up doing. But it's just, everything's like one-shot killing them. And they're just dropping left, right, and centre. And it's just like, because everything changes. Like, you can go into an area and you've got the drop on them, but you've got that for so pick your target carefully, because whichever one you're going to shoot at, the rest of them are going to run for cover. And they ain't coming out. Like, you can sit there with the sniper rifle, and you can do this on easy, and they'll literally just stand there and wait for you to shoot them, and that's awesome. But you go in on hard, they literally all scatter and hide behind stuff and do not expose themselves. And every now and again, you'll get a grenade that somehow comes straight over and lands at your feet, and you're like, "Whoa, I better move." And they're flushing you out of cover, and it's like, okay, this isn't going as planned.
Yeah, I think the Hive are the best for that for me. I love the Hive. Like, the Thralls, the ones that just run at you.
Oh, man.
They're dumb. They just run at you, but they run the right way. Like, oh no, there's some, you turn around, there's one the other side as well. Like, oh, they're each side, what do I do?
They are actually really, they do get even, like, I get really tense when those guys rush you, because if you mistime your punches and you miss, and they go on and they're all like stretching away, and like, oh, for God's sake, and it's just like, you're just wailing away at each other, and it's just,
With regards to reviews though, and Kotaku held off on their review for quite some time, and the piece that Kirk Hamilton wrote afterwards is a stunning critique of Destiny. It's absolutely magnificent, really, really detailed, the sort of thing that you don't generally get in online journalism these days. It's a joy to read.
That was like a week and a half late. It wasn't after the release date, wasn't it?
I think it was the 22nd it went on. I mean, to give you an idea of this piece, I read the first few paragraphs and was like, yeah, I'm reading all of this. This guy gets Destiny. It says, "I'm standing in front of a cave, my assault rifle drawn. I'm shooting at a steady stream of identical aliens. I do this for an hour, hoping an alien will drop a good enough item so I can finally feel okay about walking away. That moment never seems to come. That's Destiny. I'm sprinting across a battlefield alongside two friends. A massive alien gladiator wielding an equally massive shotgun chases us all over. His minions appearing on all sides. We shift and maneuver, coordinate our defensive strategy on the fly, cry out for help, rush to one another's aid. For 20 minutes we survive by the skin of our teeth until the boss goes down in a tower of flame. We circle back to where he fell and start to dance. That's Destiny 2. I'm urgently calling into the microphone to 5 teammates, frantically strategizing against a series of challenges that are so demanding and mysterious that we initially didn't have a clue how to proceed. I'm surprised to find myself more stiffly challenged by a video game than I have been in ages. We battle, we lose, we learn, and we regroup. We're becoming an increasingly well-oiled machine, split into squads, calling out positions to one another. Just when it feels like we're not going to make it, a moment of calm emerges from the chaos. Did we? Have we? Yes, we survived to a new checkpoint. We begin to cheer, throaty, honest cheers, shared between relative strangers, filtered over a network from 6 different gaming headsets. That's Destiny as well. Destiny can be a cruel, exploitative game. It is deliberately unsurprising in so many ways, yet brilliantly bold in others. It's unusually a lot of fun, except when it aggressively isn't. I can't stop playing. And as soon as I read all of that, I was like, you've got me for the entire review because you get it.
So, do you think, I mean, that's really well written bit of thing. Do you think the fact that obviously, you couldn't review Destiny before the release date probably was a large factor in some of those review scores? Because I know that they were getting the things out on the day it came out, weren't they? To try and make sure the world was full of people, I guess.
Which is reasonable given the sort of game that it is. You don't want somebody reviewing a game based on it being populated by a handful of journalists for a week.
Yeah. Because, Gamergate. No, let's not.
No, don't go there.
Let's not even start. No, don't even say the word. But just do you think that, if say it was on a week ahead of the release date, if the reviewers had a week to play it and say, they just bundled every dev they could in the world and, tried to flood it with as many people as possible, do you think they would have gotten better review scores at the date? It's hard to say, isn't it, really?
No.
Yeah, but I don't know, like, word of mouth to me is for quite a few years now been the stronger sort of incentive to for any game. And, I couldn't have cared less if this game came out and got 4s across the board. That pre-order went in based on what I experienced from the open beta, and that was, that's it. I'm a belligerent sod anyway, so I'm just like, I don't care what anybody says. I know what I got from just that weekend playing this.
Yeah.
If it gives me that, plus with all the other planets, I'm sold. Yeah. That's fine. I might not buy the DLC from this if I get to that, but within 24 hours of me putting in the disc, that's it, the expansion pack, I'm sold. That's it, done. And it's just,
I knew from the point that I played the beta that I booked a week off from work.
I think that's probably the best review, isn't it? Give them a big chunk. Try it. See what you think. It's like, okay, I get it. Let's have more games do that. Give us a big chunk.
Well,
they
give us a hearty chunk of it as well.
It was the whole sort of first, if you will, chunk of the game. I mean, it's a
20% of the fucking game, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, there was. I was talking to a gent who runs our local game, and he was saying about, because I asked him how midnight launches were and stuff like that, and he was saying the sheer amount of PlayStation 4 bundles that they sold. He said it was absolutely insane. He says where you'd normally be selling, like a bundled machine every now and again amidst people that were queuing up. He says we were set. I'm sure he said that they sold something between 35 and 70 PlayStation 4 Destiny bundles on the first day, which is pretty insane, really. That a lot of people had played that beta and were just like, yeah, this is the first point that I kind of step up to the plate.
Yeah, and like seeing a lot of people, like I'm looking on the website now, and there's, you can see on the, sign me out, but just before there was like 16 people, and at least 11 of them were playing Destiny, and so it's like that's been pretty consistent. Now you could argue that is still a relatively new game, and that's going to be the case until something else comes along, which is how it works these days anyway. People move on to the new shiny as soon as something catches the eye, and that's fair enough. It's always been the case. I've never been that way for many years now. I tend to just be absorbed by a particular game and don't want to play anything else. And so I feel like I've had my fill, which is usually around about the 300 or 400 hour mark. But with something like this, I feel I'm really kind of hoping, because I look at the way that, and obviously the MMO comparison with Warcraft and stuff. I don't know how close that is, how truthful that is as a comparison to make. I can see why people would make it with the Activision connection and stuff, but I kind of hope it works that way. I hope that we're kind of still playing this game in 4 or 5 years' time,
Well, they're committed to it, aren't they? They're committed to a large run. And when that DLC drops, the first of it in December, you can imagine there's going to be an article maybe a few weeks before, and they were like, oh, when the new DLC arrives, level cap goes up to 50. Or something like that, and you just
I hope so.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. That's the exact reaction that when I first thought about it. They're going to be like, so that they're incrementally kind of building the audience as it goes along. Plus, you're getting those folks like I saw somebody writing a little while ago who was having a pop at the story, and they were like, oh, the witch says that, or the queen says that she'll ask for your favor, but that never went anywhere, did it? And then the queen's bounties kicked in about like a number of days after that, and all of a sudden you've got these missions to do, and it's like, if this is the sort of thing that you're going to keep doing to keep making me smile and keep making me surprised, and I haven't give me any reason to redo those missions and get a few incentive points, that's fine. Even with the Cosmodrome, it seems like do you remember Spooky Dokies? Find 17 Spooky Dokies from fallen enemies. It's like, Warlock, will you nip out and get me a packet of fags and a bag of crisps? They could tell me anything at that point. It's just like, I'll shoot the guys again and I'll run around, and I'm just having fun with it. So keep me engaged like that. And
I think the only thing the game's missing for me is one thing, and I can sum it up in 2 words what it's missing. Speeder races.
Oh, that.
I said exactly the same thing the other day.
Why would you put a speeder bike in and not let us race them?
But it needs to be like, what was the motorbike racing game? Oh, man.
Road Rash?
Road Rash. It needs to be Road Rash style, where you can punch other people and perhaps even shoot them. Well, if they added that, oh man!
You know what they could do if they were to tweak it in a little way? They could almost do it like Mario Kart Double Dash, where one of you drives and one of you controls a weapon.
Monging grenades out the back.
Yeah, we'll have a bit of that. If somebody from Bungie is listening, add that to the clipboard, please.
But it's that thing where that kind of optimism sort of seeps in, that sort of real kind of, I just don't know what they're going to do with this, and I like that feeling as well, like that sense of anticipation of where they might take this. I mean, I get it all the time with games. It's like, I play GTA Online and I think, wow, look at this world, they could do all sorts of things with this. And quite often they don't, but obviously there's your imagination can outstrip their budgets no matter how much they throw at these games, but slowly but surely, like over the years, these games are getting to that stage where, like 25 years ago, if somebody had explained Destiny to me, like, when the PlayStation 1 came out and said, oh, well, in about sort of like, 15, 20 years from now, you'll be playing games that do this and are like this and look like this. And you just, oh, yeah, please.
Jamie, I've seen people complaining about the loading times to get down to a planet or get to a place which is going to be populated by other people, and I'm like thinking, I used to come back from the shops with a cassette, and I'd stick that in, and about 8 minutes later I'd have a game. But shut up about
I've seen the loading time comments myself on some of the forums, and you kind of think, well, wait a minute, I can go into my own personal inventory menu and stuff and be messing stuff around whilst that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
you're
I
not
can
stuck, are you?
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't feel like loading, and I can understand when you particularly when you look at the Crucible matches when you got 6v6, some of that loading time is whilst it's doing whatever jiggery pokery it does in the background, whatever sort of alchemy that sort of matches everybody up. It's doing all that stuff because you see the ships come in bit one at a time, don't you? Kind of thing.
Yeah, that still makes me smile.
Yeah. And you just like. I've got nothing but appreciation for this stuff because here's another thing, like people are very quick to criticize this, but and I've seen a few people getting a little kind of sort of, I guess, pissed off that a lot of people drop Battlefield to go onto Destiny, and that's just the nature of things as well. But it's like we got so used to games taking like months to be in what you can consider to be good working order. And this game came out day one, worked. I mean, hell, I was surprised, and it's definitely one of the things that really made me sit up and take notice was how solid the beta felt.
It felt done, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt, no lag. I had like a single dropout over the weekend or whatever, and I thought, wow, that's really tight considering, that this is where they're doing their stress tests and all the rest of it. And you kind of think, I was expecting it to be a bit of a nightmare, and it wasn't. And it inspired me, like, in terms of like, they're serious about this. And, whilst I can count on both hands the amount of dropouts I've had in the time I've been playing, and which some people might think, well, that's a lot. But I've been back in the game that I left within sort of like 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. It's like literally just reload, back in again, and I'm playing with the same group that I left, and it's just, that's impressive.
I think that the scope of what's been done as well within the fact that they've got a game world this big looking as good as it does on Xbox One, on PS4, on PS3, on Xbox 360, and even towards the end there, they were working with Microsoft to get the Xbox One version up to 1080p, and the fact that they've got all 4 versions, I think it's incredible of a game of this scope.
Yeah,
I can't imagine like how difficult that must have been to do, and a lot was made of the alleged sort of $500 million budget, but then the game made that back on its first day. Or with the amount that was sold to stores, it made that back on its first day. And I saw one comment online which said that if Hollywood had made $500 million in a day, there'd be cause for celebration. And that just wasn't there from the gaming press. It just wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, I admit that when I saw that budget, I was kind of taken aback by it, because it's like, that's a lot of money for a video game. Mm-hmm. Like before that, we'd had GTA, which was $170 million, and now here comes this game, which is more than double that, which seemed like insane amount of money. But it's like we're looking from a very sort of distorted perspective on that. We just see that big sum and all those zeros and think, what the hell? And like, it's without knowing exactly how that's broken down, because to me, they I've spoken to other people about this, and although no experts, but it made me think that a lot of that budget has gone into the hardware, a lot of the back end stuff, their server stuff.
Yeah.
Because like this thing is tight. It doesn't. We're not having all the issues we've gotten so used to having, be it lag, be it dropouts, disconnects, and all the rest of it. I'm just not getting any of that. And I think whatever, a huge chunk of that may very well have gone into sort of like their infrastructure, which is just solid.
Well, they said they wanted to build something sort of over 10 years and stuff. And, like you were saying, once that infrastructure's in place, that they've got a solid foundation to build upon. And that foundation was so solid that we went into the beta, and it worked. It felt like it was finished.
It worked in the goddamn alpha, to be fair. Fucking worked. It's like, brilliant. Like, I can jump in and stuff just works. Like, it was working every goddamn time. I think I had one time when the tower was empty for like 10 minutes, but then I went out and came back and it was fine. It
Yeah,
works,
I've
man.
had one moment like that, and I thought, oh, they're cool. I can have a wander around without somebody dancing in my face for 5 minutes. But, yeah, it is a bit eerie, isn't it, when you go around and there's
Yeah.
nobody there, and you think,
But
what's
some
that?
of the funniest times I've had have been in the tower, just with other people. Like the other night, me and CJ were playing, and we were just chatting away, and I went and sat, sort of jumped up onto the ledge, and just sort of sat there. And this sort of group of about 6 guys came over, and just sort of started pointing at me. And then one of them jumped up on the ledge with me and started, trying to teabag me. I just stayed sitting there watching them, and then they kind of kept pointing and dancing and pointing, and they started jumping off the ledge next to me. I just sat there quite patiently, just watching them throw themselves off ledges and try and hump my face. It was hilarious. And then I stood up, gave them a little wave and a little dance, and they all sort of did a little wave as well, and then buggered off and did something else. But it was a lovely little moment.
I got quite obsessed in the first week of just standing by the vendors and listening to what they were saying. Particularly the speaker, and I think the speaker's the one where people got this theory that they're the villains, or particularly that he's the villain, not the good guy, because he says something really interesting, and you can often hear it if you hang around him, and then he says something like, "She's strong, but she's not invincible," and you think, is he talking about the stranger? Because that sounds like a threat to me, and that sounds like really ominous, like and who is she? And this is what this. Now, when people are slating the story, I'm getting all this out of it, and I'm thinking, no, hold on, I'm sitting here now, and my brain's ticking over everything that was said in the game, and these little clues to things, or little moments of kind of teasing something, and I kind of think, no, there's something here that makes me want to see what happens, and makes me interested to see where they might take it. And, yeah,
I want to find out how that goddamn guy sees out of his helmet. It's so. Where are the eye holes? They're on the side.
Yeah, but look at your own helmet. I mean, my helmet's almost like just there's no eye holes at all. I've got horns.
See, that's what the Hunter is the most progressive, because they actually all look like legit helmets with bits that work. Like CJ, your Warlock ones are just like sort of boxes with a little hole in the front, aren't they? Not in a bad way.
You're a box with a hole in the front.
Oh, them's fighting words.
Well, with regards to like the story, one of the Dark Souls lore guys, Terramantis, has said that he's seen the criticisms of it and he doesn't see it, and he wants to start doing Destiny lore videos. I was like, yeah, I'm down for that. Whenever he starts putting them up, I'm looking forward to that. So
yeah, you have to link him through to us if he does. Yeah, so I wanna.
I'm
quite into it. I think there's a way of doing the story stuff that is just give them enough to tease us all the time, and it kind of, those with a bit of imagination get carried away with this thing. And that's not necessarily good story writing. I'm not saying it is, but if there's enough hooks there to sort of keep you interested and to start your brain ticking over on stuff, then it's doing something right in my book. And that's kind of how I look at it. It's
see how they build on things from
exactly.
There, yeah. Right, well, I reckon that's a good point to cut it. I think it's been an awesome chat. Thank you very much for joining us.
No worries, man. Give me any time for a Destiny chat.
So where can people find you thereafter?
People can usually find me sort of hovering around the Kana Rinse site and forums and Twitter and all the rest of it.
And how
podcast.
How would you explain Kana Rinse to somebody that
Kana Rinse
might be listening to this for the meeting you for the first time here, and to tempt them into visiting?
I'm the last person that you should be asking this, really, because I'm crap at this stuff. Like, how do I sell? I'd never make a good salesman, because it's like, it don't work, it's bust, it's crap. But no, we make a podcast about video games, but it's each week we pick a specific game, and we basically discuss it and break it down and have our own perspectives on it. But they're not necessarily new games. We go back through the ages from games from a few years ago. We have an unwritten policy where we try not to talk about a game that's less than 12 months old, although we've been prone to sort of.
I like the way that you don't pick games that are too old either. Like, it's that weird kind of middle point, that sort of PS2, PS3 kind of, last...
Well, a bit of both. I mean,
5 or 6 years. Like, it's nice. It seems to fit nicely in the things that I like. And if you listen to Kane and Rince, you'll find that you'll probably want to play the games they talk about immediately afterwards, because I'm playing Brutal fucking Legend again. I got that bug. I'm like, I've got to. Oh crap! Got to put it back in.
I would say though that for me, Jay's finest hour, where I genuinely laughed out loud on a bus and made people turn around, was the Heavy Rain podcast.
Oh God,
that was a peach.
I'm actually embarrassed by that episode. If I'm honest, and actually that episode inspired us to cancel swearing out of the podcast afterwards.
Yeah.
And it was me. I was listening because I edited it, and when I was listening back when I was editing the show, I was like, "Oh my God, what a dick!" But it's just. But, you know, there was probably better ways I could have got my points across rather than just all the profanity that spewed out of my mouth.
I listened to that one and the Fahrenheit review, I think, back to back. And I've never played a Ken and Rince game. And never played a David Cage game. And I was listening to Fahrenheit in particular and just going, internet spiders and what? It was really strange to listen to, but really good.
But yeah, you know, the weird thing is, like, this is one of the reasons I cannot we kind of resent all the hate that's for Destiny. It's like, dude, have you never played Heavy Rain? Like, please direct your hate at something that is worthy of it. You know, that deserves it.
Oh no, I kind of liked Heavy Rain. I'm gonna have to listen to that episode now on the way to work. And
but the irony,
disagreeing in my head.
The irony is that Heavy Rain reviewed really well when it came out, didn't it? Like in the opposite way to Destiny. So I'm wondering if there might be, you know, over the course of time, you might get those Destiny reviews that have been kind of quite middling, looked back on with a degree of ire in the same way as those.
What were we thinking?
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. Well, thank you very much again for joining us, and thank you for listening, everyone.
No problem. Thanks for having us on.
No worries.
Very
Take care.
Welcome. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Do I say bye as well?
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, bye-bye.
That was good. I'm glad we did that.
Yeah.
Bye.